it should scare Matt Gaetz that they are taking their time. You know what I mean? Like if he had nothing to worry about, it would have been over weeks ago.
Yeah.
But because he's a loudmouth and he's very high profile and he's got, to some degree, the Republican Party protecting him, what little of that is still occurring, he should be in a position where they're like, yeah, we don't have enough, so we're going to drop it. We'll just go after this other guy. The fact that this is dragging out and they haven't full on cleared him, considering that's what they would also do, is like, we do not have, nor do we expect to find evidence to tie, Matt Gaetz to any of these kind of things. Like you can expect, especially in his home state where his own father was a state representative as well, and he's been tied into Florida politics forever. This is where this case is taking place. You can expect that they would, clear him for the old boys club.
You would think,
not immediately, but within a few weeks, right? Just get it so he can go back to his fine work of being a anti-democracy gadfly. Well, not only did he and Marge lose their third venue in the Los Angeles area and end up having to have their little gathering on the steps outside of the Riverside City Hall, it turns out that their organization is bleeding cash. That they had at one point this, plan that, this whole thing with him and Marge Greene, besides being I guess my guess would be like, keep your profile high so it's harder to come for you, right? One of this is using the sort of Trump style, create a PR barrier, right?
Okay.
That's definitely part of the reasoning behind this. And welcome, chat room. Thank you guys for joining me. Hello, good morning. And so if you're in Matt Gaetz's situation, you can either hide, which he initially tried to do, by the way. If you'll recall, Matt Gaetz got very quiet in the beginning of all this. And then he decided, I guess, that ploy, he went to Tucker Carlson, he made up this whole story about being blackmailed or extorted or both or neither or either, some conjunction of the two. And that didn't work at all. If you notice, we have heard zero talk from Matt Gaetz about the blackmail scheme that he was apparently a victim of. Since that time, he has now been, doing this. I think he brought it up at the first of these tour stops, but not since. Now, granted, he may have wanted to in Riverside, but they lost their venue. It turns out that this whole organization, this is bleeding money, and that its main reason for existing is that they were raising money for running for office. You are constantly doing that. If you are if you're a congressional House member, like senators, they can raise money leading for 2 years up to their run, then they can get in office. You can argue that they can pace their fundraising over the next 4 years and just do little fundraisers here and there to make sure. But the last 2 years running up to the actual election, there is when they're really going to push for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's, I guess, there's a microcosm version of it where the middle 4 years are scissored out when you're a congressional House member, because you have 2-year terms, effectively, and you're just constantly having to raise money, constantly having to look, in this rotating election cycle where, it's brutal. So it's not surprising that they would want to get this kind of money and make sure that they, have it flowing in, and they need it. They're going to need it. While Gaetz may arguably have a bit of a lock on his district because of how Florida is and all that stuff, Marjorie Taylor Greene does not. And the embarrassment that's coming from her, constituency based on the stuff that she said, is getting louder and louder. They're getting more and more embarrassed by her, and it doesn't bode well for her next cycle. And so she needs this money. So I'm looking up I lost the article on it, but I wanted to bring up, So this is from the Daily Beast. The Matt Gaetz Marge Greene fundraising tour is actually a cash fire. At the height of the controversy surrounding Matt Gaetz and the revelations he's under investigation for sex trafficking, Marjorie Taylor Greene bet big with him on a nationwide joint fundraising tour, because that was the primary reason for this. Whatever the second effects of wanting to do this thing, simply for the purpose of keeping his profile high so that they can't come for him in the dark. They can't, it won't be a no-knock raid experience for him. He can make as much noise as possible and say, because arguably the political persecution is the clamor cry from that crowd right now. Greene, the House GOP's top fundraiser, is now faced with the decision. She can continue to join forces with her beleaguered ally at the expense of her campaign war chest, or she can cut bait and let Gaetz fend for himself, because apparently it's him that's costing her campaign cash, because she earns money nationwide, even if her own district doesn't like her, if it's getting worse.
That's insane.
Since Gaetz and Greene kicked off the joint fundraising committee on May 7th in the Villages in Central Florida, their campaigns and joint fundraising committee have posted a combined loss of $342,000.
Hi, vey.
And according to recent filings with the Federal Election Commission, that joint fundraising effort, Put America First, reported only $59,000 in contributions total. So they took in $59,000, and then the events themselves cost $342,000. But that kind of PR, priceless. And these are the folks who are going to run on fiscal conservatism and the ability, these are the folks you want in charge of your taxpayer dollars. That sort of meager haul would be fine for a dinner or a one-time event, but Gaetz and Greene have repeatedly held high-profile events and spent a whopping $287,000 to hold them, meaning they're in the hole by more than $225,000. Both Gaetz and Greene contributed $150,000 apiece from their own campaigns to the joint fundraising committee. That's gone. Okay. And they've raised money almost entirely from small dollar donors. Only 4 people gave $500 or more to the shared committee, but their campaign tour of some of the most Trump-friendly areas in the nation have been inordinately expensive. In fact, the big winner from Gaetz and Greene's barnstorming appears to be, wait for it, Gaetz's PR firm. The Logan Circle Group, which the campaign has hired in early April, made off with more than $1 million in the second quarter of 2021, while the majority of the money came from Gaetz, $825,000 over the course of 1 month.
Whoa.
Think about that. Matt Gaetz spent $825,000 on PR in 1 month. Has anyone within the sound of my voice, Republican or Democrat, maggot or majority of normal people, has your opinion of Matt Gaetz improved $125,000 worth? Now, granted, I would say this is all money they allegedly spent fighting to cover for him during this crisis control situation about the Greenberg stuff. But does that mean how much did they spend to get him on Tucker that first night?
Yeah.
So, let's see.
Just considering where their money goes is maddening.
I know. So he spent $825,000 on PR in 1 month. His campaign, the company that he works with, has other Republican clients who had to spend large amounts of money. Like the Logan Circle Group is killing it right now. I'm fairly certain they are a DC-based PR firm. They're not a Florida-based one. Although there may be a
that I
Logan
don't know.
Circle. A Logan Circle. There's a Logan Circle in DC. I don't know. There's a Logan Circle in Lauderdale. I'm not aware of. That's possible. But the fact that the firm nudged past the $1 million mark with the $250,000 it received from Put America First. So he spent $825 on them. Then Put America First, their campaign, paid them $250,000 for PR for these events, where turnout's been fairly crappy, and they lost their third venue. According to FEC filings, a Gaetz campaign spokesman told the Daily Beast that all donations raised on the tour had gone to Put America First. Well, in all caps, by the way, the organization, not to actually put America first.
Right,
That's clearly not a part of this at all. Those totals are let's see. Individually, Gaetz and Greene raised $1.3 million and $1.34 million and $1.31 million in the second quarter of 2021, respectively. Those totals are certainly impressive, and Gaetz and Greene could argue that the publicity from their circuit is helping them fundraise individually, except they're not making that argument, and both candidates have actually raised less in the most recent quarter than they did in the first. So they are spending more and they are getting less. And a lot of their, a lot of this stuff is like our recurring donations on political websites and political donation sites that they're getting. Gaetz made $1.8 million in the first 2 months of the year, his personal best. He spent $1.95 along the way. The majority of it on fundraising and a pricey public relations scramble to push back against reports about the investigation. But Greene, whose campaign is easily the biggest money draw among House GOP, plummeted, coming 1.9 short of her eye-popping $2 million first quarter haul. Why are we seeing so much Marjorie Taylor Greene? She is the highest and best fundraiser in the House right now. Now, the silver lining, we got to take a break, but the silver lining for the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene made $3.2 million in fundraising in the first quarter is that that's where all the Q dollars are going, and they are not going to other people. It is a zero-sum game in terms of fundraising in the Republican Party right now. And
I guess I'll accept that.
Her gain is someone else's loss, and all they're doing is throwing good money after bad, because you can donate all you want to Marge Greene's, campaign coming in. She's a one-termer waiting to happen, and the people of that Georgia district very well may oust her, and all that money could have been spent on people who had a more secure chance. And they wasted it in the first quarter of Marjorie Taylor Greene's thing, and she's going to spend it all. It's going to be gone before she even has to run again, before 2022 comes around. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Parts Radio program, Mega Worldwide. By the way, Johnny Million, I'm just going to show you a picture and scar you for life. I'm sorry about this.
Oh.
Can you see what that says?
Trump. I can't quite make it out.
The second word. It starts with a B. It rhymes with loner, and then it's garage.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Scarred for life. Scarred for life. So, now
just clean up your garage and put your cars in there.
No one needs to park even close to that. Now, there have been, there's a lot of situations where, Donald Trump, I think Rick Wilson's argument that everything Trump touches dies fits right in with that my personal belief that Donald Trump is and will always be a screw up his whole life. He's even the stuff he's gotten for free, even the stuff he accidentally fell into success about, like the presidency, like his dad's business, he screws it up. He can't not. It's in his DNA. It's in his coding. It's the Trump matrix, whatever you want to call it.
whatever you want to call it. It's got lots of names.
Trump, if you give something to him, he will ruin it. Because there's all these reports that he just, he made a lot of money. For example, the Trump organization made $2.6 billion during his time as president.
Wow.
And it's gone. He made $300 million. He made $300 million on the big lie from November 4th till the 20th and a little bit beyond. In that time period, he made close to $300 million. It was $284 million from his whole we get the election back. We really did win. Big lie fundraisers that he was putting out. He made close to $300 million. It's gone. And it'd be one thing if he was like paying his debts and stuff and bailing himself out with that money, and you'd go, it's skeevy, but I get it.
Right.
Because what were we hearing about, Trump's next 2 years if he got reelected? All these debts were going to come due, and he doesn't have the money to pay them off, right? That was a big scary part of this, was that Trump Tower itself, $200 million is due. A little over that, maybe even closer to 3, is over that. And I was like, oh, well, that explains the big lie. He's gonna earn this money during this time. He's gonna talk his followers into bailing out his businesses. Yeah. I mean, honest to God, if he had any brains, it's not a bad scheme. You know what I mean? If you found let's say you're going like, I believe it was stolen and I'm still upset about that or whatever. And then you start looking at the money rolling in from your supporters, and your accountant and the people running your campaign were going 150, 180, 210, 250. The more you talk about this big lie, the more money rolls in. And you owe that money in 2 years. You can pay it off right now. I mean, it would be conspicuous. It would be suspicious, right? But if Donald Trump writes a check in August, because he's been siphoning cash out of this account to God knows where, to his debtors, and owns Trump Tower outright magically at the end of this, on the backs of Trumpers, not only will that be probably his greatest and only successful flim flam, it might single-handedly undermine his ability to run for office again. Because the people that might donate to that campaign are very aware that the last time we gave money to his campaign when he was running was bail out his building. So it's going to have to be this kind of like cash shuffle. The problem is his cash shuffle guy has had to step down. His, Alan Weisselberg has been jettisoned from like 50 CFO positions in 50 different LLCs under the Trump organization and its primary one, I suppose. I don't know that anybody knows the true inner workings of how maybe Weisselberg does, but even then it seems so murky and poorly drafted that he himself might have some surprises during his testimony moments. But certainly Trump and his kids don't know how the business is actually run. They just know that there's a big enough lie cushion and hidden money like that milk and cash, where if you had to go to jail for a couple of years for $80 million you hid someplace while you were pretending to be a billionaire for years, you could get by on that.
Yeah.
I'm saying if you stop spending your time in states that might have in countries that have extradition with the United States, your dollar goes a long way. So over the last little bit, the returns on the big lie are going down. And I argue that that's where Matt Gaetz and Marge Greene have found themselves, is that the big lie is not as profitable as it once was. The first quarter, the reason they were fundraising is because they were the reliable Trumplicans that were supporting him during the beginning of this big lie. And then when it didn't pay off, the money started to go down in, similar to Fox News and Newsmax and OAN's ratings did, after it turned out that Trump ultimately did not get reinstalled, or did he?
What? I knew
Is
it.
Trump is Trump still the president? Is he
Uh.
going to be reinstated in August, or in Mike Pillow's new timeline sometime this fall? Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.